Today I'm really excited because I'm going to give the breakdown of the time frame that it took to completely renovate the RV from the time we found it to the time we were actually able to move into it, and also the cost. One thing that I've heard over and over again on different RV renovation blogs is that things take longer and tend to cost more than you anticipate. And I would have to say that is 100% correct. You finally decide you want to live this lifestyle, you're excited, you're ready to go. We started the search in June and we didn't find an RV until January 10th. And that was me being really, really deliberate and looking almost daily. We knew we wanted a Class C. We wanted something that was small enough we felt comfortable traveling in, didn't take a special license, wasn't super difficult to drive or navigate, and also it was big enough that we could live in it. And that was a really tough thing to navigate. One piece of advice that I would give that I heard was to just get something and get into it. And I know even with that advice, we overthought it, tried to get everything in one rig, and we wanted the ability to travel and live in it. If we were going back over a year and a half, I'm pretty sure we would have done that differently. The other thing we really wanted was we wanted the vehicle to have a motor in. We don't have a truck big enough to haul. We don't want to buy a truck big enough to haul. We don't want to travel with a trailer. We were keeping our search to a Class C. If I were to go back now and talk to my past self from 22 months ago, I would have said, don't try to get everything in one vehicle. I would have wanted to get a smaller Class C RV just for traveling in. I would have been real open to having a trailer and probably a fifth wheel that we could have parked and just kept there. Fifth wheels and trailers have really great floor plans. We even saw a fifth wheel that was completely renovated that we almost got. It was $60,000. We didn't want to spend that much. We really thought we could buy something and renovate it. And we were stressed about finding somebody or paying somebody to move it in the event it needed to get moved. Really, that is not that much of a stress when you're full time stationary in an RV, and having a second small one to take trips on would have been amazing. We are just moving into our RV and we already know what things we would change. Another thing that we would have changed is that we had our number one floor plan choice and we ended up buying our number two floor plan choice. Part of the reason is that the number one floor plan choice has been super difficult to find. It took us about 7 months to find this floor plan, and it was our second choice. What I would have told myself back then is wait and get what you really feel like you want, which is a contradiction to just get something and move into it. So here we are, ready to move into an RV that's been massively renovated, had a tremendous amount of water damage, that could have been considered a lemon. At the very least, we were massively, massively swindled. Part of that was our lack of knowledge and knowing what to look for with water damage. And part of that was the owners that we purchased the RV from going to great lengths to cover up the water damage. I have no respect for them or for anyone who tries to cover up any issues in an RV. I do realize I've contradicted myself. I've said, just get into something and do it because you're going to want to change your mind. And then I've also said, I would have waited to find the number one floor plan. And I also said, if I had known better, I would have bought two separate rigs, one to live in and one to travel in. And yet we're just moving in. So maybe down the road, I'll change my mind. I can see in this process of 22 months and 14 months owning this RV and going through a massive renovation that there are already things I would have considered differently and had different conversations. I have notes. We found the RV online on January 10th. It was about 6 hours drive away from us. We drove through a blizzard. We drove back through fog. It was the weirdest and most challenging trip I can remember being on. We rented a car there and then we drove together in the RV back. It was the first time driving a 31-foot RV, let me tell you what we bought. We bought a 2002 Shasta Freeport Cheyenne 31-foot Class C with a super slide. It has a Ford 450 V10 engine, gas, automatic, and it came with a Cummins Onan QG 4000 generator. That is one of the things that made us feel like it wasn't a total lemon. It's a brand new generator, had very little time on it at all, and it's about $3,700. We found the RV on January 10th. We went and picked it up on the 23rd. Our plan was that we would put $5,000 into a renovation. I would go through and touch up the paint because the paint had been done. We would keep the flooring that was down. We would put new plywood in the cab area. There was one place we knew that there was small water damage in the back bedroom area. So I would cut that out. Basically, we would repair little things, buy a composting toilet. Most of the upgrades were superficial. Also, purchasing items that made our life a little easier. We did find out that the oven wasn't working correctly. I'm not sure if it was a better idea to replace it with an electric convection microwave, which is what we did, or to have had somebody service it and just use what was there existing. In those moments when you're faced with decisions, you try to make the best decision possible. The RV had been renovated, which I felt like was going to save us a ton of work. I wouldn't have to sand and prime the cabinets. I might change the color paint of the bottoms, add an extra coat to the white because it wasn't done well, replace the plywood on the tab over bed area so that it was one sheet that was in really good shape. There were things like that that we were doing. I was going to change all of the hardware on the cabinets. Looking back, it's really minor, superficial stuff. And one of the benefits to purchasing this RV was that we were in a position where we could not sell the RV. We had uncovered all of this damage. I knew it was way more than I could handle in a first time RV without knowledge. I was not prepared to do that. We didn't own tools. It was completely overwhelming. And we were planning on moving in about a year ago in April or May. The only thing we could do is move forward. So we found someone to do a renovation. So 17 days after we bought it, this takes us to February 9th when we hired Jen and Joe. We couldn't drop it off with them until May 22nd, and they actually weren't going to start working on it until after July 4th weekend. May 22nd was a weekend that we were both free, that we could get it down to them. It was an 8-hour drive. The RV sat until we could drive it down to them. It was completely overwhelming. We were pretty devastated. And now we knew that we were going to be spending all of our savings on trying to renovate this RV. We did give them a budget on the renovation, and they broke that down into an 8-week time frame. The RV was ready to pick up on August 28th. This is all 2021. We were both sick with COVID then, so we actually picked it up September 11th, brought it back to Reno and parked it. So from September 11th, 2021, we spent our first weekend, the weekend of April 1st. It has been sitting there for 5 months, and we finished the renovation in that time. We also found a whole bunch of other issues. So let's go over the amount of money that we spent. Our goal was to spend about $20,000 on the rig and then put $5,000 to $10,000 into the renovation that we were going to do, regardless of what RV we purchased. That was our budget. We ended up buying the RV for $21,500. We took the trip to pick it up for $600. Then we gave ourselves a budget of $5,000, and I knew exactly what I wanted to get right in the beginning. The composting toilet was $1,000 of this. A new sink, new faucets, new hardware. So I purchased all of that, and then we realized that we needed to have it renovated. We drove to drop off the RV to be renovated, and then we had to turn around and pick it up a couple months later. The renovation budget we had was $25,000, and we went over that. We made the decision to change out the flooring, and I am really glad that we did. So that was $3,500 of the extra cost. Smog and registration was $130. So up to this point, everything is about the RV and picking it up and all of that stuff. Us finishing the renovation, we spent $600 having a propane tank delivered to our son's house, set up and filled. I'm counting that in our RV renovation cost, although it could be moving in and living in it. In this renovation, we finished one side of the living room, dining room. We put cabinets and a countertop and little ottoman stools that we could put storage in. I love that area. This also counts the $150 we spent when we found the couch. The other thing this accounts for are some other things that we had to get fixed. When the propane company came to hook up our propane, the propane monitor went off and we knew that there was a leak. It was very stressful. We had to shut down the propane. When the RV maintenance company came out to the RV, they realized that our propane detector was 20 years old. They should be changed every 5 years. We spent $225 replacing the propane detector and for them to find those propane leaks and tighten them. When the propane was getting connected, the propane company shut our furnace off to connect it and check it. They did not turn the furnace back on. We were not at the RV when they hooked it up and checked to make sure there were no more leaks. It was winter. The pipes froze. We had a massive leak that was extremely stressful. It looked like water was coming from everywhere. It took 4 months to fix that. That's because it takes time to schedule the RV maintenance company. It's also because it was winter. We had temperatures in the teens. The RV became unplugged during that time, and then we ran out of propane and had to get it delivered. So from the time that the propane was hooked up and they didn't turn on the furnace and our water exploded, we had two more times that everything froze. And that RV was such a solid block of ice. All of those items that needed to be fixed are also included in the price of us finishing the renovation, which comes to a total of $64,100. Here's some of the retrospect in that situation. When we were really frustrated that we had bought a vehicle that was a total lemon and we had been swindled. First of all, I felt stupid because I didn't know better, because I didn't see the water leak. When the RV was dropped off to be renovated, Joe let us know in that process that they went to such great lengths. They actually opened up the back wall where there was a small water leak. And to hide it, they shoved styrofoam in that wall, tacked the wall back down. They did a great deal of paint and tacking things down that if we hadn't known what to look for and really looked well, we would have never realized the water damage. We do know a lot more now what to check for. So the chances of us ever buying a rig that has water damage are significantly lower. There was so much frustration in all of that and so much overwhelm. And we knew that was going to be so much money that I kept looking for RV models that were our number one choice in floor plan. And I only found two in the last year. One of them had no renovations done, and the other one was completely renovated. And both of them were $59,000. Here's how my brain had to process feeling so swindled and how overwhelming this was. We spent $21,500 for the rig. It came with a almost $4,000 brand new generator. The tires were in really good shape. The engine had pretty low miles on it. So just buying a Ford E450 truck, the cost that it would just be just to buy that vehicle and to buy the generator, in my mind, kind of made up for the fact that the whole rig was basically like completely water damaged. The other thing that made me feel better about this whole situation was that to buy a rig that, yes, had a floor plan better than the one that we had, would have been almost $60,000. And that would not include the fact that one was in Washington State, one was across the country. We would have had to get it there. I didn't know much about it. I did know that the miles were higher. I'm not sure if there were any issues. Also, neither of them had solar. They didn't have a better generator. So we would have been spending a lot more money. And just like with that first fifth wheel that we found that was totally renovated, that was also $59,000. In every situation, we would have done things to make it more ours, just because an RV has been renovated, often you want to do things to it that make it more your own. So we would have been adding money to those. One of the Class Bs that we found had not been renovated at all. All of that to say that this $64,000 makes me feel a lot better about the amount of money that we spent. We just were only planning on spending $30,000. I wanted to get into something we could afford. We had a budget that was pretty good. We moved on this RV immediately. We knew it was the closest thing to what we wanted that we could have possibly gotten up to that point. When you're excited and you have a budget and you just want to get into something, I think we followed the advice for the most part that people give. The advice of set a budget and just get into something that you can afford. Try to get it as close to what you think you're going to want and know that what you think you're going to want is probably going to change. All of that is true. I would add on to that, if it's not urgent for you to move into this vehicle in a short amount of time, to really take more time to get it done. So that's it. That's our total renovation time frame, process, and cost, advice and opinions, and how I feel about it. In the end, we spent right about where every single RV that we see that's at this level is at. And also, we have a completely clean, completely renovated, professionally done renovation that's beautiful and that we love. We've gotten everything in it that we wanted to. Once we decided we were doing the renovation, we were not holding back on what we wanted. We replaced everything that we had considered replacing in the beginning. We've spent our first weekend in, and we are slowly taking this next couple weeks to move into it. We are really excited because soon I will have the RV walkthrough with our stuff in it and the whole process of moving in. So stay tuned.